Hi, I'm Clark Smith. I'm the winemaker for WineSmith, and today I'm going to talk to you about one of my most interesting projects that I've ever done, and this is a grape called St Laurent. That's the French spelling of it. It's St Laurent, the guy with the seaway. He was the Bishop of Rome and was martyred on August 10th of 286 AD. So the reason that's important is before we had Brix hydrometers and other ways to measure sugar content in fruit, we used to, by law in Europe, pick the grapes on the saints' days. So it was either the saint's birthday or often their day of martyrdom was picked, and August 10th is really early. So that's why it's called St Laurent. Most of it is actually not grown in France because it's too humid and it has a very tight cluster. So you can't grow it in Germany either. But the German name, Sankt Laurent, is what is used in Austria, where they have about 2,000 acres, and also the Czech Republic, where it's the principal red wine, again with about 2,000 acres. And so, in other words, it needs a dry climate with a lot of ultraviolet light to keep mold from happening. Now, because it's so early picked, it ripens in the middle of August, that means that the wine that comes from it has relatively high acidity and low alcohol. This is a 11.8, and that makes it perfect for seafood. Now, my winemaking gurus from Bordeaux and Martyrdom, south of France, always taught me that high acidity is not good for red wine. And that's certainly true of Cabernet Sauvignon or Tannat or any of the Bordeaux varieties that they make there, because acidity causes saliva to come into your mouth, and the more acid there is, the more saliva it takes to neutralize it. And that's a problem because saliva has protein in it. Protein combines with the tannins and makes astringency, and you want your wine to be round and fine, and so too much acid means a coarse mouthfeel, very grainy kinds of sensations. So, but that's not true for St Laurent. We don't really know why, but for some reason the tannins in this thing have like pajamas on them. They're very soft, and so it's a very complex wine. I actually think of it almost like a white Sancerre. It has a little herbal edge to it, a lot of fruit, and this nice acidity and soft, ample mouthfeel. And so it makes it just the perfect wine for sushi or half-shell oysters or paella. I've got all of these in my cooking show, Gracious Living in the Time of Corona, where I'm teaching you how to order sushi over the phone and how to shop for good oysters and that sort of thing. I've put a little chill on this to get it down to about 60 degrees. So let's see how well I did here. Another aspect that I want to bring up, it's related to this tight cluster. Dale Ritchie is the grower. He's down in Sonoma Carneros, right off of San Pablo Bay. And so there is some possible danger that in some years we might get a little mildew. And so what I decided to do, partly because of that and partly because of my first finish was 2013, and I wanted it to be a little brighter and a little richer. And so I'm using a technology that's relatively new in the United States called flash détente. And what we do here is to crush the grapes and heat them up to 180 degrees and then put them right into a vacuum chamber so that they drop right back down to 60 degrees. But that very short time, high temperature, denatures the browning enzymes from mildew and vacuums off any mildew aromas. And it basically explodes the skin, so you get all of this color very early in the wine's life, and that's part of the reason that it's so soft and round, because the color molecules limit the polymerization of the tannins. So let me see how I did here. We're gonna, there we go. You can see that that wonderful purple color. And what have I got here? Yes, 60 degrees, right on the money. So, the other thing that happens with Flash d'Étang, there are amylic esters that are formed inside the grape, and that's the fruitiness that you smell with carbonic maceration. Because carbonic maceration, you don't crush the grapes, and so there are enzymes that cleave those esters and make the wine less fruity. And that's the way it happens in almost all wine. But when we flash, we also denature those before they have a chance to destroy that fruitiness. And so the wine has a very bright, just sort of blueberries and blackberries and maybe acai. And so it's a little bit like a Morgon or a Beaujolais Viage. But there's also an element of earthiness to it that I just find wonderful, especially with oysters, where you just have, it's a much more complex wine, sort of like a Beaujolais with a sort of cynical Eastern European side. Okay, so now, very rich. It's got plenty of acidity, very, very lively mouthfeel. And you've got those berry and earthy elements playing with each other. Long finish because it's only 11.8 alcohol, so the wine has no bitterness. And before I forget, I want to tell you about my favorite wine and food pairing book, which is called Red Wine with Fish by Josh Wesson. And he's just he's a genius in playing with wine and food. I guess the title of the book is the first wine and food combination he ever had, because he's Jewish, was Manischewitz and gefilte fish. When he was 6 years old, he thought that was pretty good. So, anyway, I hope you'll check out Gracious Living in the Time of Corona. It's a whole series of episodes. WineSmith 1, that's my YouTube channel. WineSmith and the digit 1. Join me online. I'd be happy to answer any more of your questions, and let's just have some fun together. Hope you enjoy this wine as much as I do.